let's go ahead. I want to start first about talking about some references. This is an absolutely enormous subject. And for those of you that are interested, there are several books that I think you might find of interest. One is relatively new compared to the others. And this is from Dr. Jerry Tennant. And it's called, as you can see here, Healing is Voltage, rather. And this is a pretty good sized book. It would take you quite a bit of time to go through it, but it's a very enjoyable read. But Dr. Tennant correctly shows the connection between the bioelectrical properties of the body and pain and what people can do to heal by fostering the correct bioelectrical environment. And of course, we can use this information to relieve pain, but it goes very much further than that. So for example, with LifeWave patches, one of the things that we're doing is using the technology to improve the metabolism. And we do this by increasing the energy output from the mitochondria. So when we have increased energy production and improved flow of energy through the body, a consequence to this is reduction in pain. But an underlying mechanism is an anti-aging effect. And what I mean by that is that as we age, the potential of the cell begins to decrease. And we can actually correlate the age of the body and the age of the cells to a biological age. And some people are going to age faster than others. This would be similar to how we could correlate the true biological age to the length of the telomeres. So someone could be 50 or 60 years old, but biologically speaking, maybe they're only 30 or 40 years old. And we do this through measuring different attributes in the cell, such as inflammatory stress, telomeres, and the cell capacitance and the phase angle. So this would be a very good book that would give you more than an overview on how we can use energy therapies to heal the body and how the bioelectrical systems control the biochemistry. So that is one resource for you. Another resource, now this is going back many decades now, by Dr. Robert Becker, The Body Electric. This is really a classic in terms of the energy medicine community. And Dr. Becker, as it says here, is a pioneer in the field and was really addressing how the electrical systems in the body control the biochemistry and then how we can use these properties to improve upon the way that human beings regenerate. I remember reading this book when I was much younger and enjoying it. The information in this today, I would say, is significantly outdated, but a number of the underlying principles are still quite valid, meaning, since this book originally came out, I think it was maybe first published in the late 1960s, there has been an awful lot learned about stem cells and the bioelectrical fields around the human body. But still, nonetheless, an excellent resource. And then I also wanted to include another one of my childhood favorites, was Magnetism and Its Effects on the Living System. And this book, very, very interesting because it actually, one of the things it shows is that weak magnetic fields have a more powerful effect on the body than strong magnetic fields. So for those of you that use magnets in healing, I'd recommend that you take a look at the experiments that have been done in this book, because what it's very going to clearly show is that when you have a magnetic field that's too strong, you're not going to get a biological effect. we found this out in our own research. We have well over 70 patents on pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. And one of the things that we do with our devices is we make the magnetic fields extremely weak, fractions of a Gauss. The Earth's magnetic field is somewhere between half a Gauss and a Gauss. So we really have fields that more closely mimic the fields that you would find around the Earth. So that's important. Another thing that would be important about this, and this is actually relevant a little bit to our discussion today about ice wave, and you could say the same thing for energy enhancer. We have, of course, I've got two energy patches here. As everyone knows, we have a white patch and we have a tan patch. White is positive, tan is negative. Well, interestingly, what these scientists found is that the north pole of a magnet has a different effect than the south pole. The south pole would be stimulating, the north pole more sedating. And this is important because in magnetic jewelry, it is not often distinguished between the north or the south pole. The manufacturers, they're not really thinking about it. They're really promoting the strength of the magnetic field, and this is a mistake. This seminal work demonstrates that the effects of these poles are different, just like you would have positive and negative poles in a battery or another system. This has to do with the way that the direction with which energy flows. So, for example, they did experiments on the use of these magnets in pain relief and also in treatment of cancer. So they found that with a south pole magnetic field, as I recall, that this could actually speed up a cancer line, whereas a north pole magnetic field would slow it down and sedate it. On the other hand, if someone didn't have cancer and you use a south pole, you could improve the function of the immune system. So this is really, you need to know what you're doing with these things, like any other tool. So it's a fascinating read, and it's a very, very easy read, and I would definitely recommend it. Okay, so let's talk about some of the factors around pain. Now, we can describe pain in terms of the biochemistry or the bioelectrical properties of the tissue. And what's important to know is that when you have an injury, there is going to be an immediate release of oxidative chemicals to suppress bacterial infection. These oxidative chemicals give rise to inflammatory chemicals, which are there to tear down the damaged tissue. And the inflammatory cytokines act as the signaling molecules for stem cells. This was discovered at Sanford Burnham in La Jolla, California, very close to our office there. And Dr. Evan Snyder was the one that made that discovery. Really great guy. And so the important thing about this is that if you're in pain and you have a chronic injury, so let's say that you've got an injury, it hasn't been healing, what's happened with this? And I'll tell you the experience of a leader that I spoke with during the past week. They used X39 on a chronic injury, and they initially didn't get any results. The issue here is that if you don't get the inflammation under control, then the stem cells will die at the injury site, and you will not be able to heal properly. So for some people, applying X39 for managing the pain as one option works just great. For other people, though, with a chronic injury, this could have to do with age, diet, poor sleep, poor hydration, poor mineralization, could be a variety of factors. We're going to talk about how to get past all of these things. The important thing is here, though, is that for some people that are not healing from a chronic injury, you've got to get the inflammation under control so the stem cells can heal the injury. So this could be a variety of different things. You could use nutritional supplements to do this. You can use exercise. You can use the patches. You could apply an Eon patch to the point of pain. And this will get the inflammation under control, X39 on the back of the neck or below the belly button, and you've got great pain management. Of course, because we're talking about Ice Wave today, Ice Wave is wonderful, right? You could apply the Ice Wave patches on the bottom of the feet, help to get the pain and inflammation under control. Now X39 can do its job. So I just wanted to include this link because it shows the bioelectrical effects of pain. The biochemistry is extremely complicated, so I have simplified it pretty dramatically, but at least you have a little bit of an essence with it. But it's important to know, and the point of this is that the pain phenomena has two components to it. One is the biochemistry, one is the biophysics or bioelectrical properties, if you wish. And what that means is that we have options for how we treat pain. If we take the approach that we're going to balance out the biochemistry of the body and use bioenergetic devices, different types of healing therapies, bioenergy therapies, if we use them together with biochemistry, the results are going to be extraordinarily better. And we're going to talk about a number of options that you have here for all of these things. So let's get into that. Also, diagnosis is a really important thing. Over the years, we've been really blessed to work with a number of great researchers. And one of the tools that we've used is thermal imaging. And this is something I would definitely recommend for all women, let's say over the age of 40. I'd recommend that you get a thermal image maybe once a year or as your practitioner recommends, because thermal imaging can detect breast cancer years before it actually ever shows up. I've heard estimates of 5 or 6 years before it shows up. And thermal imaging is completely non-invasive, doesn't use any type of radiation, completely safe for the human body. Another benefit to thermal imaging is that it gives you a data point. So the way that we've used it in our studies is to take a thermal image and then also to do a blood or urine test to look at inflammation. So in other words, by doing the blood or urine test, we can determine which inflammatory markers are elevated, and then the thermal image tells us where the inflammation is. So this is very valuable data. Of course, if we had an image like this, it would be much easier to patch, but in this particular case, we could simply apply, let's say, a white patch on the back of the neck and a tan patch at the base of the spine, and we would be able to see reduction in pain and inflammation along the spine very, very quickly. And of course, the reason why this shows up is that thermal imaging, just like it sounds, relies on body heat, and body heat is infrared light. So we have infrared light, a form of energy, electromagnetic energy coming off of our body. And we can see that there is a change in the electromagnetic energy with inflammation. So we see the connection between the chemistry and the physics. Okay. Now, I want to do a shout out to my buddy, Dr. Norm Sheely. We are so unbelievably grateful to have had the acquaintance of Dr. Sheely over the years and have him do studies for LifeWave. And I can't say enough great things about him and the contributions that Dr. Sheely has made to the energy medicine community and the alternative healthcare community. He is a true hero and champion. And one of the things that Dr. Shealy spent many years on was TENS therapy, different types of TENS therapy where people could get drug-free pain relief. And of course, this is showing that we can use an energy device to relieve pain. And for some people, this works great. For other people, they don't respond to it. But this is to say that there's alternatives to pharmaceutical drugs where we're using electrical energy to manage the pain. So that's the important concept here. Now, if we can manage pain with electricity, what about electromagnetism? So you may remember from physics, when we have a flow of electrical energy, let's say through a wire, we are going to get electromagnetic fields at right angles off of that conductor. And this is the basis for forming electromagnetic fields. And of course, that's how we can have power generation today, thanks to Nikola Tesla. And we can have electric motors, alternators, and other devices. In this particular case, here is a form of pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, which involves a ring or a coil placed around an injury site. And you can see we have a giant set of electronics there. So I'm pretty sure that you wouldn't want to walk around with this giant ring on your shoulder. And also, this is time-consuming and expensive. But I would say magnetic field therapy can have its value. If I was going to be critical about this, because we've done our own research, I would say many of the magnetic field therapy devices that are on the market, the field intensity is too strong. And my personal preference, based on many, many years of research here, is that you want to use weaker electromagnetic fields. And this has been shown with a number of devices that are already on the market to improve microcirculation, have pain relief, and promote healing, but these devices are expensive. Now, of course, I also want to show that red light therapy, which is infrared therapy, of course, has been used for pain relief. And here's a device where it's 20 minutes a day, and you can see the claims they're making is for treating a variety of different types of aches and pains, inflammation, and even faster healing. And this is all fine, but many of us are busy, and we don't want to take this amount of time out of our day to deal with pain. It'd be a little bit of a headache. So, what kind of options do we have? Well, Ice Wave, of course, the benefit is that we're going to stimulate the skin with very low levels of light, and we get the benefits of light therapy, but the convenience of using a Band-Aid. Just simply apply the patches and go. Now, when in doubt, if you're just getting started, by far the easiest and most effective things to do would be to apply the Ice Wave patches on the bottom of the feet for pain relief. In acupuncture, this is a point called kidney 1. You put the white patch on the bottom of the right foot and the tan patch on the bottom of the left foot. If that were the bottom of my foot, that would be about where it goes. It's called the kidney 1 acupuncture point. And this is very effective at relieving pain, even throughout the entire body. So as a protocol, you could place X39 on the back of the neck and then the Ice Wave patches on the bottom of the feet. I've met medical doctors where that is their go-to. They're very busy. They want to help their patients, and they just have the patches on the bottom of the feet, and then they just go from there. And we could actually spend quite a bit of time talking about all of the benefits of putting the patches on the bottom of the feet, including longevity. Now, what about if you wanted to try something a little bit more specialized? I'll tell you something that happened an hour ago. My son came to me, he's 25, and he was exercising yesterday, and he felt that he kind of tore a muscle in his abdomen. Something was a little bit off, and he was in pain. So I said, great, let me show you the clock protocol. So we put a tan patch on the point of pain. And when you're working with somebody, it's really as simple as saying, okay, what's your level of pain? Let's say we're on a scale of 0 to 10. Where's your pain level at? You want to substantiate this first. Then you have the person point to the pain and you put a tan patch there. And then you're going to go 3 inches, let's say 75 millimeters, from that tan patch and apply a white patch to the 12 o'clock or 3 o'clock position if you're looking at a clock. You don't have to wait very long, 5 seconds if you wish. And then you ask the person, okay, what's the pain level at? So in the case of my son, I said, okay, if the pain started at a 10, what is it now? And he said, okay, I think it's dropped down to a 6. That feels much, much better. I said, okay, great. Then we moved it to the 6 o'clock position. And I told him to move around. It was 5 seconds later. And he said, okay, I think it's about the same. Maybe better, but I think it's about the same. Then we moved it to the 9 o'clock position. And he said, oh, okay, this has dropped again. It's at a 4. And he wanted to leave it there. And I said, okay, fine. So in a matter of 30 seconds, we took the pain down from a 10 to a 4. Probably could have got it down lower, but he was already happy with that, and he wanted to leave the patches there, and that was fine with me. So the clock method is incredibly powerful when it comes to pain relief. Now, let's say that you have a circumstance where someone has pain throughout the entire body and they've had it for a long time. What do you do? Well, again, this is relatively easy. You could apply a X39 to the back of the neck. You apply one set of ice wave on the bottom of the feet on that same point, and then you're going to apply another set of ice wave patches on the upper torso. Now, you have a number of options here. I would suggest that you apply them here up on the shoulders. And we generally find that this location works very well with the location under the feet. So you'd have 2 sets of ice wave patches on. And you'll find that after, some people will respond immediately within a minute. You'll see their pain will drop 70%. Other people might take a little bit longer, might take 20 minutes. But it's a very easy protocol, and you don't have to be moving things around. So that would be if you had pain throughout the entire body. Let's say that you had someone which just had localized pain in the lower back. Well, you could simply do what we call bracket the pain, which would be applying a white patch on the right side of the pain and a tan patch on the left side. And that protocol we found over the years works extremely well. So you have a number of tools there with IceWave, a number of protocols that are very, very simple and extremely effective. And we've performed, I think it's 18 clinical studies on IceWave, and we've repeatedly shown that it is just a phenomenal product for managing pain. Okay, let's move on and take a look at some other things now. So let's say that you're using IceWave, you're getting good results, and you want to look at some other things. What else can you do to improve the quality of your life and and make sure that this pain that you've had for many years doesn't come back. And of course, we're just talking about chronic pain now, not acute pain. Well, if pain is a bioelectrical phenomena as well as if it's a bioelectrical phenomenon as well as biochemical, what that must mean is that it has something to do with an imbalance of electrolytes, potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium. So what we would expect to find is that if this is true, there should be a link between electrolytes and pain management. And in fact, there is. This is the great news. So I want you to think about this for a moment. There are studies that we can find that show a link between pain management and potassium. This is not a bad article because it gives an overview of some of the benefits of potassium supplementation. You could get, hypothetically, enough potassium in your diet, but in modern diets, we're not getting enough. So I'd recommend you look at 500 milligrams or even 1,000 milligrams per day to supplement with potassium. You would take this as a potassium citrate powder. And there are enormous benefits to taking potassium. First of all, many of you probably drink alkaline water. That's fine. But what was found at Oxford is that it's actually potassium that regulates the alkalinity of the cell and maintains homeostasis between acid and alkalinity. So by taking potassium, we're alkalizing the body. Here we go. Potassium, in a study in 2008, shows a strong anti-pain effect. When was the last time you went to your doctor and said, "Doctor, I'm in pain," and the doctor said, "Well, great, I have a solution. I want you to eat avocados and bananas, and your pain is going to be just fine," right? Most, and I am not poking fun at doctors. I have nothing but admiration for doctors because they provide an extraordinarily valuable service. It's just that we know medical doctors, most of them, don't get the training in nutrition that we'd really want them to have. There are many doctors I've met that are an exception to this. The point is that there are alternatives, and something as simple and inexpensive as potassium has been shown to have a strong anti-pain effect. So yes, you can modify your diet, take sunflower seeds, avocados, bananas, those apricots, these things that are high in potassium, but it's certainly very convenient. I wouldn't recommend 6,000 milligrams a day, by the way. That's really high. On supplements, again, 500 to 1,000 milligrams. Another benefit is that potassium assists with the making the arteries more flexible. And as a result, potassium can reduce high blood pressure. And of course, this is really safe, really effective, and not going to be any toxic side effects like pharmaceutical drugs. So potassium is a way that you can help regulate your high blood pressure. One thing that I'll mention as a side note, since it's not here, and I did this research work 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago, just a little bit less, about 38 years ago, is I found that when you increase the amount of potassium in the cell, cancer cells die. I did this work with neuroblastomas, a TBJ neuroblastoma and a C1300. And the difference between the two is one is immunogenic and the other is non-immunogenic. But in any case, that doesn't matter. What matters is that because potassium is regulating the alkalinity of the cell, as you increase the amount of potassium in the body, you can reduce the proliferation of cancer cells or even kill cancer cells. But that's a separate story. So enormous benefits to potassium. Now, Jeff, I talked a little bit earlier. I made a promise that I was going to show people some of the things they could do, specifically men, on ways to improve